Distinguished guests, hello and welcome to the Bervann Global Investors Forum in Asia and Australia. We are pleased and excited that you have taken the time to join us today. My name is Kim Kawashima and I'm the technical coordinator for this event.
Court, a lot of people drink Jack Daniels, right? And I would bet that they have no idea who's behind Jack Daniels, what hat working, what value we put behind it. So would you please give us a little bit of background on the Brown Foreman family?
Well, it was started by my great grandfather, George Garvin Brown, and he was a pharmaceutical sales rep. And he recognized a void in the market for a consistently high quality product that consumers could trust. And he just took the initiative to do it himself. And ever since then, everything we've done with the same values in mind. I would also say that, when COVID hit, Brown Foreman's knee-jerk reaction wasn't how can we benefit from this? It was what can we do? So overnight, we changed the distilleries over from manufacturing beverage alcohol to manufacturing cleaning and sanitizing alcohol, which we've been providing to hospitals and healthcare professionals around the country for free. The guidances for the private equity firms that I work with are not restricted to a specific industry because we're dealing with our own money. So it's different. We're more flexible. We're more agile. So we're kind of all over the place. But in the last 4 years, we have really been keying on technology, media, digital entertainment, communications, and quality of life products and services.
I think we need to think in terms of consciousness. We need to think in terms of impact. We need to think that each one of us is a gatekeeper to the future generations. And that is a fiduciary responsibility. Rod and I take that very seriously. And we want to make sure that we not only entertain, but as we entertain, we focus on integrity and on quality. And we take our viewer on a tour around entertainment, around documentaries, around places of distinction that they may have never seen, both historical and current. And we find these incredible artists that otherwise nobody would ever know about. And we feature them because fashion is not just the brand names. It's something much more than that. It's a language. And the language is that art, music, fashion, and film are the universal language for unity.
When COVID hit, I pivoted my company. We ran directly into the fire of COVID to make sure that we can survive. We gave birth to the product called Sense and Sense. And now the world is leading a pathway to our doorsteps. And we're having a fun time doing it. The product we set out to do was to be able to give the world the highest level of confidence when you walk into a building or to an arena or to every place you want to go, that when you walk in that place, that you know the people around you are not sick. We've learned earlier on that just scanning for temperature has an 88% miss rate. So if you just want to look at somebody's temperature, that gives you an 88% miss rate. However, now science and doctors have shown that if you do a multi-layered screening approach like we do, you up the ante to about a 98% success rate of identifying those who are sick.
You know, I've seen a lot of crisis and I've seen a lot of change. It's interesting. As a young girl in the 1980s, I thought a deficit in the billions was scary. We underwrote an enormous amount of money, in my opinion. And now those deficits are in the trillions with maybe not an end in sight. But I learned a lesson as a young girl that it's not the nominal amount of the deficit. It really comes down to a question similar to a mortgage. Can you fund it? And the answer is profoundly yes. I learned something else, Val, in a crisis, which is if you don't change, you're done. And the thing is, I profoundly believe that. If you look, for me, when I look at this pandemic, what it says to me is it's a 5-year accelerant on growth. So take retailing. It took us 5 years to get 15% online. We'll get 15% in a year. The interesting thing is, so I really dissect the verticals and ask myself where the winners are. And one of the biggest winners is technology. And we're not going back to where we were. That is absolutely true. AI to me is as revolutionary as email, but a lot of AI is black box. And black box is not the answer in regulated businesses. Mondo Brain is clear box, white box. It is prescriptive AI. We are in a different lane. The lane we're in empowers humans to be brilliant. At the point of decision making, we let you look at 10 billion pieces of data so that you can make that decision. That's the answer to highly regulated businesses.
The world might be slowing down, but we're not. Every month, we're going to keep pushing by coming together to address the rights and wrongs of the current state of affairs in our industry. Until we are able to meet again in person, we are going to work together to advance mutual business interests and join hands to complete the most appealing transactions on the market. At Bervann, we are fortunate to have built a global ecosystem with over $3 trillion in combined assets under management. We are the platform where sovereign funds come to find large institutional investors and asset managers to co-invest alongside for sizable opportunities. The platform where fund managers meet capital allocators to raise their AUM. The platform where companies and entrepreneurs connect with the right investors or strategic partners to fund or grow their business. Bervann itself operates a private equity and a venture capital vehicle focused on technology, healthcare, media, consumer, financial services, manufacturing, and real estate. Additionally, we lead a large asset management vehicle exclusively supported by Asian and Middle Eastern investors, with the sole mandate to make allocations to top-performing fund managers in Western Europe and Asia. Over the past 2 years, Bervann has intensified its collaboration with governments across the Middle East, Latin America, and Africa by plugging their best 10 to 20 domestic companies into the Bervann ecosystem and giving them access to unlimited capital and extensive business development resources. Last week, we launched Bervann Health. Bervann Health is the healthcare division of Bervann, investing in health tech opportunities and taking healthcare companies global. Today, the future of the world includes being health aware in everything we do, use, and design. Hence, every business should think of integrating a health component in their services and in their products. As we flood with an uncertain 2021, we owe it to ourselves and our children to avoid another 2020 pants down surprise. Based on what we know today, we need to be aware and prepared, and we must play our part. Amid the current safety and economic chaos, 2 weeks ahead of one of the most consequential elections in the United States. What role are we, investors, plan to play in a 2021 rebound? Are we just watchers? Are we bystanders? Or are we going to throw our hat in the decision board? First, let's take a look at where we are today. Thanks to the fast stimulus and early actions by the federal authorities, we live in an artificial security, which in itself is a big lie. Truthfully, we're broke. All bailouts and loans taken away. We are unable to move physically, and that's limiting our ability to assess more opportunities and make deeper assessment to manage our risk. Hence, we are prompted to expose our positions, or we have no choice but staying put in inaction that will ultimately bankrupt us all. The office space industry in urban cities is dead. Another 6 to 12 months like this, it's game over for cities like New York, San Francisco, London. Hotels and airlines are tapped out, hoping to get another stimulus after the one they got a few months ago. Socially and economic tourism were the major hopes for emergence for so many countries that have poured so much money and effort building attractive foundations to lure Western investors, tourists, and businesses. Well, no one is traveling. So that too, it's dead. Venture capital appeared as the savior lane for most emerging markets by the end of 2019. It's now a nightmare for companies and entrepreneurs to meet an angel investor, let alone a VC firm outside their region. While the best company still get funded, the average one that needs more scrutiny are paying a heavy price due to the inability to make their case in person. Our children and grandchildren, the most affected tiers in this crisis, and the least talked about, for having cut short their in-person studies to shift digitally without notice, and for the most part, with insufficient or no resource at all, for going through the depressed seasons of not understanding where we are, what's happening, and more importantly, when will it end? 2020 was 100% left in the hands of government leaders. They called all the shots, and we all bow down and live through it. Next year must showcase a different landscape for us in order to have a chance at getting back to live operations. As investors, we have a significant buying power that could move markets and influence policies. The Bervann ecosystem alone equals over 13% of the US GDP and is well above the GDP of many countries. Through how we allocate assets and what we decide to invest in, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity as an investor to impact the fate of the world starting next January. The question is, what path are we choosing? And what motivations are we going to endorse through all the investments that we make? To all problem lies solutions that can be found in disruptive innovators, by resilient managers, or responsible investors. Let's commit to make an effort to look harder at opportunities that help the world get back to active production and physical movement versus just chasing after profit. Let's make money, but let's use our position to help governments and to help the world be back to where it belongs. It might never be the same, but it would be what we learned this year as lessons, but also what we are missing. Because there is really no way we are continuing living like this past the next 6 months. We have already lost so much. And we need to look ourselves in the mirror and find what is it we have as assets or abilities to get back on track, or at least to play our part in getting back on track. Regardless of your investment focus, it is possible to find a component that help an industry get back on track. It could be airports, it could be airlines, hotels, restaurants, cruises, events, energy, real estate, sport, entertainment, fashion, retail, education, healthcare. No matter where you invest, no matter where you do business, take a harder look and ask yourself, is this money that I'm investing, is this influence that I'm giving, helps this work get back to where it belongs? How much of a power your financial capacity and authority could play in bringing the world back where it belongs? We are really hoping that this is the start of a productive conversation that could lead to a domino effect of investors from different parts of the world making strategic and impact-oriented investments. Thank you for joining us today.
I think one of the bigger impacts of this election is going to be what the tax plan is going to be. I think Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have laid out their tax plan, which is obviously going to change the current plan that Trump put in. The corporate tax rate is set to go up. Various other tax measures set to go increase. I think this is going to be the biggest impact. I think the investment community, as an investor, you want continuity in what the anticipated taxes are going to be on any kind of corporate affairs you're running in the U.S. This calls into question like whether or not, because first of all, whether or not Biden get the tax plan through Congress and it gets approved, in the next 4 years. So there's a question there. So if you're planning out your years, are you going to be under the Trump tax plan? Are you going to be under the Biden plan? You're not sure when that switch will happen. So I think that creates a lot of the issues, and when you're as an investor who's planning on the corporate thing. Now, obviously, we're going to see a lot more people going the safer route. Offshoring will probably be continuing. The Trump tax cuts had previously brought in more business back into the U.S. because the corporate tax was reduced, but we might see some of that shifting.
I mean, the biggest thing you need to do is you got to get the COVID under control so people feel safe going out and about. And I think we missed a real chance to create a national pandemic response division, sort of like after we had 9/11 attacks, they created the Homeland Security. They could have created some kind of national response plan, because I mean, this is a somewhat deadly disease, but there could be far worse. They could be like smallpox level fatality rates. So I mean, I think if you could create a much better cohesive pandemic response, I think that would go a long way to helping the economies. Yeah, for me, it doesn't really matter that much. Because what I do is grocery anchored shopping centers, and people need to eat whether Trump's president or Biden's president. So
like other economies in the world and other countries around the world, the GCC countries, including Kuwait, have been affected from the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Revenue of airlines in GCC region is to decline by about 55% in 2020. The number of flights in the Middle East region as well had reached their lowest point in April 2020, dropping about 92% relative to January 2020. Teaching online was a complete new experience for a lot of us. Online right away without having additional training, actually. And they have to use numerous digital tools to deliver e-learning. Some people, they hate technology, but they don't like to use, especially old people. So many schools and universities as well they were not prepared for moving classes online. So the burden is put on teachers to adapt themselves and their students to a new way of learning. But of course, we received actually unlimited support from our institutions. I'm talking at least about my institution, American University of Kuwait. They supported us to large extent in this experience.
My fund is called LS Tactical Alpha Fund. We are under H Capital umbrella, fully licensed under MAS in Singapore. What we do mainly, there are three main areas of focus. First one, our flagship fund is a Credit Opportunities Fund, focusing on ASEAN area and Asia. And also there is Equity Opportunities Fund, ranging from special situation to smart beta. And also lastly, but not least, private equity and real estate opportunities. That's what my fund, the LS Tactical Alpha, is focusing on. In the last 30 years, they have been lurched from one crisis to another. In recent times, from Asian financial crisis of 1997 to 98, to various other economic and political crises in various countries. We investing and operating in Asia embrace this crisis as opportunity to find unique opportunities to deliver best returns to on our investment, given our strong entrenched presence by our various professionals on the ground in various countries and cities. And Admiral Chung He, of course, I think you guys are familiar with him, who is actually a court eunuch and also a Muslim of Ming Dynasty. The purpose is always trade and never military conquest as China's mission. It would be imperative for all of us to comprehend that China has awoken and is right to challenge US inevitably. However, China, like all Asian countries in general, as before, and is always more interested in trade and economic growth pursuit rather than military goal.
NEA is going now into its 43rd year. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, traditional venture firms in the world. We're currently investing in a Fund 17, which is a $3.6 billion fund. In total, we have about $27 billion of committed capital across the different funds. And while it is a relatively large firm, probably in the area of about 130 people, it doesn't feel like that at all. An investor has two clients. They have the entrepreneur and they have the LP, and they both need to be taken care of. So I spent about a decade. I was an entrepreneur for 25 years. I started one of the first e-commerce companies in the world in 1993. I took it public at 99. I never raised venture capital. I never understood venture capital. I wasn't interested in venture capital. Now, the positive of that was that I was able to take that company private because I had a control stake even post-IPO, because I didn't get materially diluted. I owned 80% of the company pre-IPO. Then I moved west and I became a seed investor, and I spent 10 years as a seed investor. And most of my time with my entrepreneurs was helping them with two things: entrepreneur realities and fundraising. And I would constantly talk to them about how important it is to choose the right partner at the right firm. Choosing the right firm is important, but choosing the right partner is far more important. Sometimes the difference of one person is the difference between success and failure. I need 5 things to make an investment: people, 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 a great idea, and a huge market if it works.
Next year, 2021, the expectation is still going up because of liquidity reasons. So to me, the central bank had dominated the stage, and nothing changed lately. So we had some major impact by COVID, but the response was so strong that the market kept going up. And we know that there's been a lot of differentiation within the market, within the, picking the winner and the loser. And that's a good news for the active manager. So they have a lot of opportunity right there.
I would argue that it's worse now, because in 2009, the economy was so bad. You got to remember in 2009, sustainability was a pretty nascent industry. You know, we were on the cutting edge of that and benefited from that. But with that being said, most people in 2009 would meet with you if you could save them money, right? I mean, because there wasn't a whole lot of, oh, wow, I'm growing so fast. So a lot of people were stuck in the mud and were willing to meet with us to talk about potentially saving some money. Now, the big difference between now and then is it's hard to get off the ground on a computer screen. Like Ben was talking about, it's different. You know, NEA's got these old relationships and being one of the top firms in the world. But for a startup, it's tough without the face-to-face because you have to build that rapport and those relationships. So I see now actually more difficult. Now, the only caveat to that would be that the digital tsunami that's happened in the last 6, 8, 7 months or whatever it is from when COVID really hit in earnest, it's just been unbelievable. A friend of mine works at one of the large super regional banks, Val, and he said that, I won't name who they are, but you would know who they are. They're one of the top 5 or 6 banks in the country. And he said that their digital transactions were 22% of total transactions in January, and that they are now 83% of all transactions.
I think that this unprecedented UNGA 75th will be remembered as is, and I hope never repeated again, because diplomacy is not only chatting through video. I conducted Kosovo delegation for 4 years, 4 very successful UNGAs. And it is not just listening to pre-recorded messages like it is now, but it's a live conversation. During the UNGA, we signed many agreements, many diplomatic relations. We got and passed many messages, not secret messages, but messages that needed time. Administration can work, logistical issues can be conducted, but decisions are made in heads of states level, and that require live meetings.
CSE was set up end of 2007, right? When China considered its massive foreign reserve too big, and they think there's a need to diversify the investments globally. 2007, I was on Wall Street. I was an investment banker, at JP Morgan and hired by Barclays. CSE was just set up. So I got the chance to move back to China to be the first group of employees. Actually, I was one of the first 100 employees of the new institution, which at that time had $200 billion and plus a few hundred billions worth of domestic financial institutions holdings. For example, the government's stake in Bank of China is held by one subsidiary of CIC. So at the beginning, it was about 500 billion. And today, both sides have grown, the US dollar side and renminbi side. And collectively, it's close to $1 trillion. So it's like a top 3 or maybe top 2 sovereign funds in the world. I was mostly in the private market side, private equity and VC. And funny enough, at the very beginning, my first title at the CIC was head of co-investing. 10 years ago, from the China side, Silicon Valley was viewed as the sort of the apex of innovation, right? So it's called West Summit. And during the last 10 years, we have seen this gradual shift of innovation power. So China also becomes the important innovation center. But the bigger picture is the determination of the China government to transform the economy the last 2 decades, right? Starting with the Canadian pensions, as well as with some more progressive sovereign funds, for example, the Singaporean, GIC and the Temasek, right? More and more sovereign funds and pensions have become active direct investors. They want to compete for deals directly with PE funds, VC funds.
Bervann Global Investors Forum. Join us for the last edition of the year on Wednesday, December 2nd. Register now at bervann.com.